Timothy Snyder, The Road to Unfreedom, Russia, Europe, America. Embark on a deep dive into the political transformation of Russia under Vladimir Putin and the subsequent implications for America and Europe. The Road to Unfreedom, Russia, Europe, America, by Timothy Snyder examines how Putin resurrected the ideas of Russian philosopher Ivan Ilyin to establish a right-wing dictatorship in Russia. This introduction to the politics of eternity and the role of propaganda outlines the impact of Putin's ideological approach beyond Russia's borders, with events like Brexit and the election of Donald Trump serving as crucial examples. Traverse the changing geopolitical landscape with Snyder as your guide and unravel the underlying forces driving Russia's actions.
Putin's fascist inspiration. Ivan Ilyin, a Christian fascist who was exiled from the Soviet Union in 1922, had his ideas revived by Vladimir Putin in his political program. Ilyin's vision of a right-wing dictatorship in Russia was centered around a redeeming, savior-like leader who promised to defend the nation from external threats, violence, and propaganda. Putin's implementation of Ilyin's ideas has proven successful. Putin's utilization of Ilyin's philosophy. In response to the 1999 terrorist attacks in Russia, Putin utilized Ilyin's concept of uniting Russians against a common enemy. This began his implementation of the politics of eternity, which aimed to maintain political power indefinitely. With the help of propaganda master Vladislav Surkov, Putin exploited manufactured crises and cemented his grip on the Russian state. The West became a new enemy and was represented as a threat to Russian sovereignty. Putin's policy changes included allowing FSB officers to shoot people without consequence and making libel against the government illegal. By implementing Ilyin's dream, Putin has secured his position of power in Russia. Russia's covert war against the European Union. After refusing to join the European Union, Russia shifted its foreign policy goals toward the creation of Eurasia, a political union that would rival the EU. To achieve this, Russia adopted covert measures to destroy its European enemy from within. Russian government hackers employed cyber attacks to spread propaganda and fear among the general public. The consequences included the success of far-right candidate Marine Le Pen in the French election and the pro-Brexit sentiment in the UK. Russia's anti-EU foreign policy proved successful as UK voters decided to leave the European Union by a slim margin. Putin's half-victory. In 2013, Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych was set to enter an association agreement with the EU, which would have undermined Russia's Eurasian ambitions. But after talking with Putin, Yanukovych did not sign the agreement, causing protests across Ukraine. The protests shifted from the signing of the agreement to fighting for Ukrainian dignity in the face of oppression, leading to Russian intelligence agents suppressing the protests and Yanukovych instituting dictatorial laws identical to those passed in Russia. When two protesters were shot dead, Ukrainians demanded Yanukovych's resignation. Russia then tried to destroy the foundations of the Ukrainian state through disinformation and eventually invaded and occupied Crimea. Though Ukraine was able to sign the association agreement months later, it was a divided, war-torn nation, and further integration with the EU was complicated. Putin had scored a half-victory. Putin's propaganda tactics. The book reveals how Putin used propaganda to justify military intervention in Ukraine, blamed Ukraine for shooting down a passenger plane, and influenced Germany's political landscape. Through a disinformation campaign, Putin justified Russian military intervention in Ukraine by portraying ethnic Russians as victims of Ukrainian oppression. He even claimed that Ukraine shot down Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 in an attempted assassination on him. Putin's propaganda aimed to weaken adversaries and gain relative power. Putin intensified airstrikes in Syria to generate more refugees seeking to settle in Germany. He hoped this would lead to a rise in anti-immigrant sentiment and boost far-right populists. A disinformation campaign framed refugees as rapists and criminals, and a fabricated story helped weaken Merkel's grip on power, as her party lost 65 seats in the 2017 election, and the AfD obtained the third highest number of votes. The Russian meddling in the U.S. election. In the book, the author discusses how Putin successfully intervened in the 2016 U.S. presidential election using cyber warfare to ensure Trump's victory over Clinton. Putin needed to make sure Trump had enough capital to run the presidential campaign, which he secured through real estate dealings. Russia's cyber warfare efforts were extensive, and the majority of American voters were exposed to Russian propaganda during the 2015-16 election cycle. The publishing of Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta's hacked emails was perhaps the most infamous example of Putin's interference. Trump's move towards the politics of eternity accelerated the United States' move towards inequality to Russia's level, validating Putin's strategic relativism.
In conclusion, The Road to Unfreedom vividly depicts the shift in modern Russian politics under the influence of Putin and Ivan Ilyin's ideology, as well as their impacts on countries across the globe. From the election results in France and the United Kingdom to the changing narrative of the United States under Donald Trump, the influence is palpable. The book dwells on the importance of understanding the tactics of strategic relativism, disinformation campaigns, and how cyber warfare aims to manipulate political landscapes to align with Putin's vision of a Russian-controlled Eurasia. A sobering reminder of the consequences of embracing the politics of eternity, this work also encourages readers to remain vigilant and informed in an increasingly interconnected world.